We all have dreams. Most are forgotten within minutes of waking, some are remembered for years. There are mountains of interpreters and specialists, I suppose, who claim to have the key to meanings of these nighttime visions. There are water dreams, flying dreams, or dreams of long hallways full of doors. Most of the interpretations are pretty obvious, quite honestly, and their interpretations skate pretty close to fortune-telling. The experts all offer explanations that are non-arguable, like dreams about water, meaning drowning in debt, or dreams about a room with 2 doors, indicating you're trying to make a decision. Nobody would argue these explanations, and so they seem to be impervious to dissent. I did have a very strange dream many years ago. The dream involved a street, a tree, and the neighborhood that existed long before my arrival. The residents who had lived in our neighborhood the longest were Mr. and Mrs. Halston, who had moved to the area before the roads were paved. Mrs. Halston and her husband were always very nice. The dream began at the end of the street I grew up on, where it connects with Stockton Avenue. There's an imperceptible downhill grade suggesting a rolling landscape of the past hidden by the suburbs. The third left is Ralston Avenue. I don't know why, but I rarely used this road even when bicycling as a boy, since it kind of ended up intersecting the next street oddly, and you would have to dogleg to get to the shopping plaza, so I always went another way. This was one of those streets with an oak tree in the middle. There may have been some kind of neighborhood protest when the city intended to cut the tree down to make way for the street, and so they put the road around it and decorated the trunk of the tree with reflectors. These deterrents, of course, didn't work, and the tree had been hit many times. But the tree was clearly a neighborhood icon, so it stayed. The dream took the following course. Down the street I grew up on, right on Stockton Avenue, and left on Ralston. The dream moved around the tree. The dream slowed down. As I passed the oak and looked to the left, all of the houses disappeared. What remained was a lake in late afternoon, reeds swaying in the wind, the lake itself flanked by a crooked white fence. The sun sparkled off the water, blackbirds balanced on the reeds, and the only building in sight was a white farmhouse on the far side of the lake, with the obligatory pickup truck out front and horses grazing in the distance. A scene of serenity in the late afternoon prior to the onslaught of development. I hadn't spoken to Mrs. Halston for years. At the time, she was in her 80s. Her husband had passed away only a few months after a fire that tragically destroyed the home that he had built, and she now lived in a newly constructed house on the same lot. We were all attending a garden block party, and my mom, after hearing about the dream, asked me to share it with her. I described the scene. The oak tree, the farmhouse, the shining lake, the reeds, and the picket fence. From my vantage point in the dream, from the far side of the tree, I described the white farmhouse, the truck, and the horses, and the near silent afternoon scene that came to me in this strange premonition. "Well, that sure is weird," she said. "That is exactly where the lake, the reeds, and the farmhouse were before this area was developed. My husband would fish in that lake and ride the horses on that ranch." Mrs. Halston was clearly astonished at the detail of this vision. At this point, so was I, since I had never spoken to her about the neighborhood and its rural past. Most dreams supposedly describe one's current struggles. This dream apparently involved a travel through time.